All right, there is our check marks. We're gonna hit our other Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to go. Spinning wheel, check, check.
Feels like it's about that time.
Yeah, let's plunge, baby. Coffee, let's do it. Welcome in, guys. It is 7:30 a.m. Mountain Time, January 13th, Thursday, I believe, which means it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell, and joined by, as always, good friend and co-host, Falcons fan, draft analyst extraordinaire, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing? Good morning. Congratulations to your boys in blue.
Yeah, it was good to get always good to beat the Spurs, and like I've said before, my fandom got really poured into international football because you work in football long enough, and the joke I use all the time is I root for me. Actually, I root for me if it's good for me, I'm probably going to be rooting that direction. So, this place has been very good to me, so I'm very happy with Broncos country because, like I said, Broncos country has been very good to me over the past year.
That's weird. I root for you too. I got a few Kennedy jerseys. Now, welcome in, guys. Let's say hello to everybody in the chat here. We got Dave Glassman in the house. The Hearts. Good morning to you, Dave. Always good to see you. One of our tried and true members, EJ. Also, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. Ethan is in the house. Good morning, Ethan. Ethan always keeping on the lights in here. Good morning, gents in Broncos country. Good to see you, Ethan. US Dave saying yawn. That's why we're pouring the coffee right now. And if you didn't have to pee before, you're going to have to do it now. It's got pouring there. We got Jeremy Sean in the house. Good morning to you, Jeremy. Paul's in the house. Paul, it's not every day that we get to see Paul. Love Paul. Paul goes way back, man. Paul would have been one of our very first listeners. So good morning to you, Paul. Paul sent my wife and I amazing, nice stuff on our wedding registry when we got married 3 years ago now. So shout out to Paul. Paul's amazing, man. Sean Burns, good morning to you, Sean. Luke Wright's in the house. Good morning, Nick and Scott. We got Miguel in the house. Good morning, fellas. Jamal Killings, always good to see Jamal. Good morning, Broncos country. Broncos for breakfast. Fallen Sloth is in the house. Howdy, Broncos country. Hope everyone's doing well today. DeAndre Weatherspoon in the house. Good morning, Clint. That's the name. Clint, I recognize the name. I don't see it as much in here. So hello to Clint. Good morning, fellas. If we hire Hackett and we get Rodgers, would we try to get Adams as well? Scott, you've said you've been doing a little bit of work on Nathaniel Hackett, offensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. First off, let's answer Clint's question here before we dig into your thoughts on Hackett. Could the Broncos get Devontae Adams if they also get Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett?
You might try and do it in like an Odell Beckham Jr. deal. Maybe you can get him for cheap. Hey, come win one with us and then go do something else. But for the wide receiver position, you've got other places that you need to try and use your capital before you go after a wide receiver. But again, and this is saying, if you already have them, do we then try? If I can say, okay, if I need Adams to convince those other guys, then yeah, I'm going to go after Adams too. Yeah. But if I've already got the other two, Adams doesn't become nearly as high as a priority. I think you've got the offensive skill position weapons to be a Super Bowl contender as is, without going and spending more draft and salary cap room on a receiver.
Yeah, for me, if Rodgers wants him, I'm going to try to go get him. Even if Rodgers is already, in hand at that point, I'm still going to try to go make my quarterback happy and give him I feel like he hasn't had the buy-in in Green Bay, feeling like he's a part of the decision-making process. That's one of the big issues with him. So if you go out there and get him Adams, he's like, well, they're doing everything they possibly can. I better be bought in. So I lean into that. I do think that there was a report the last month that if Green Bay cannot come to a long-term deal with Devontae Adams, they will franchise tag him. So that probably makes him not very probable, but crazy things happen. I mean,
how old is he? He's 29 years old, so he just turned 29. So he's probably got, as crazy as it sounds, a similar window to Aaron Rodgers at a high level. 3 years. So do you come and we do something else? He can do something else, but a franchise tag for a 30-year-old receiver wouldn't be the worst thing in the world for him. That'd put him in the $20 million range. So, normally I don't like to see that, but I certainly don't like to see it on 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds coming off their rookie deals who have, a decade of earning potential ahead of them, getting put down with with a 1-year contract in the most dangerous sport in the U.S. But for a 30-year-old, that's not so bad. And maybe they franchise him and try and move him. They put a tag on him and try and, if we franchise him, then we can maybe get a 3rd-round pick for him or something. But wouldn't you know this better than I do? Wouldn't you get something like that for him anyway if he left as a free agent, as a comp pick?
You could. It's going to be a year later. is the thing. So obviously there's always the devaluation of picks that are in the future compared to now. And also it limits what you can do free agency wise. Like you cannot sign an equivalent contract then to replace him. Otherwise that comp pick will be canceled out. So that's the one where it's just, you could, but it's harder to finagle that way to get those picks. So,
So if you franchise him, it doesn't necessarily preclude a trade because Devontae Adams is worth $20 million on a 1-year deal. He is. Yeah. So that doesn't prohibit a trade.
Yeah, it should not prohibit a trade. You know what I wouldn't trade for anything? Male grooming in 2022. Cheers to 2022 and resolutions you can actually keep. How about having clean and shiny balls all year round? Our sponsors at Manscaped are here to save your balls this year and make the ball drop into 22 the cleanest and sexiest of all time. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code MHH for 20% off and free shipping. You guys have heard me talk about it before, but the crop mop is a smaller item that they have, but one of my favorites. I like to go in the backcountry for multiple days when in the summertime here in the Great Pacific Northwest, fishing, hiking, backpacking, et cetera, et cetera. And when you get into your tent that night, you don't want to be super scuzzy getting in your clean clothes and clean sleeping bag. So crop mop cleaning me up down there, helping me out a lot. It's a new year, new me with the global leaders in below the waist grooming. This year, take your package to the next level with their Performance Package 4.0 and the brand new Ultra Premium Body Wash. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the Signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer is designed to trim hair on loose skin. The advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate nuts. It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that will shine a light to the promised land in 2022.
All the talk about nicks on nuts, I'm actually more interested in as an OG, as the stuff that they do. And they're not known for this because, the shock value of the ads grabs your attention. But, as an old guy who doesn't grow a ton of facial hair, it shows up in spots. So I'm actually interested in the stuff coming out of my, the stranglers coming out of my ears, coming out of my nose, a couple, the strays on my back. All that stuff is still handled by Manscaped. And that's where I become really interested as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, 20%. Yeah. So if you didn't know already, go to manscaped.com, get 20% off and free shipping with the code MHH. Again, that's at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping. Come on. Use the code MHH.
And I'm going to be 30 in less than a month, so I probably need to start looking into the nose and ear trimmer because it's time. I had actually my mask on at work the other day, and I'm like, this something tickles. It was a nose hair that was sticking out on my mask.
I forgot you just shaved like clean. I mean, this is 2 days for me.
Yeah, this is probably like 10 days, so it's not. Yeah, I can't grow like crazy.
I can't do it. Every once in a while, I think maybe I can. No, I can't.
No,
there's facial hair is just not in my future.
It's really upsetting watching college football and seeing some offensive lineman who is like 6'6", 300 pounds of like muscle, and then is a full-on beard. Like people built different, like there's no matter what I would have done, I never would have been a good football player.
Caliber of human being.
Oh, God bless. Michael Ronquillo, speaking of a different caliber of human being. Michael, what's up, buddy, in Tucson? Good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Go Broncos. Jeremy, it'll be interesting to see what we would take. We got Joey in the house. Morning, Broncos country. Good to see you. Ernie Mays, super fan, Broncos super fan, rocking us in our Facebook group. Hello, Broncos country. Travis, I'm sure this is stars, so I'm just going to assume stars from Travis. God bless you.
You assume correctly. So 200 stars from Travis. Appreciate you, Travis.
Go ahead, Scott.
Travis says, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos country. That's all as well. Sorry to change subjects, but did anyone catch the article about DJ Williams opening up about McDaniels cheating while his time in Denver? Cheating in Patriots. Well, I'm from NASCAR country too. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. So I didn't read anything about that, but I just kind of assume people are breaking the rules. It's just who's getting caught.
Yeah. I mean, the Josh McDaniels era, I always say that I'm thankful for it because it did set the table for the Manning era, right? You don't get to the Manning era probably if you don't have the McDaniels era first. You're bringing in Eric Decker, you're bringing in Demaryius Thomas, the crazy Tim Tebow year, et cetera, which then John Fox, then Peyton Manning, et cetera. It plays out perfectly. But McDaniels, I think he wouldn't have been fired if it was just the cheating, personally. This is just me speaking, but it was the cheating plus the totalitarian leadership style that he had that was not working with the team losing. If they were
No,
winning,
and for a guy that has nothing to prove, I mean, you can again. I use the Bull Durham reference all the time. You know, when he's talking about having fungus on his shower shoes. You know, until you win 20 in the show, you're a slob. So until you've become something, all of those antics, once you're Bill Belichick, the press will call you colorful.
Yep.
Until then, you're just an arrogant little kid who, like the phrase I've used before, is born on third base and thinks you hit a triple, and we don't like you. So he'll get tossed under the bus very quickly with that kind of attitude, with no track record to back it up.
Yeah, nope. He's a sad, strange little man. He'll get another chance. I mean, we think about him in Denver and Broncos country, but don't forget that he totally spurned the Indianapolis Colts as well, who came out on top with Frank Reich, who's one of my favorite head coaches in football, but he was hired. They were going to bring him, and they even had the offensive line coach that he was going to pick signed under contract. And then Josh McDaniels is like, you know what? I'm going to hang out in New England. I'm going to stay here. So don't wish bad things on that guy, but don't wish him good things either. I'm not a big Josh McDaniels fan. Leroy coming in here, coming in again with the Hackett conversation. It looks like the new coaching search is going to come down to Quinn and Hackett, but I got a gut feeling it's going to be a dark horse like Brian Kelly. Well, it would be good for Broncos for breakfast. On the whole, we'll see. Obviously, you want the best coach possible, but for at this point, Quinn or Hackett, because Scott knows a good bit about Quinn and has been doing some research on Hackett. So this is a good conversation point, Scott. What have you found out about Hackett?
Well, I've always said, remember he got run out of Buffalo. Okay. Why? And just surface level. Now, I haven't gone nearly as a deep dive as we could to find out, what are some of the things. But on the surface level, I went and looked, and in 2012, the year before that Nathaniel Hackett was the offensive coordinator there, Buffalo finished 21st in points and 19th in yards. Their quarterback was Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick's been a solid pro for a long time. I mean, you don't play in the league for 18 years, or I think he's as old as I am now. He put up some numbers. He was a pretty good quarterback. 2013, Hackett comes in. Not really much of a change there. 22, they finished 22, so 1 point different in 19, the exact same. Quarterback, E.J. Manuel. So he was able to maintain Buffalo where they were with E.J. Manuel as your quarterback. Quick, anybody remember E.J. Manuel? I do, because we're starting to get in the time when I was covering recruiting, so I remember E.J. when he was coming out. 2014, 18th, so a little bit of a rise in points, 26th, and your quarterback, Kyle Orton. So you were basically able to hold serve for this 2 years while he was in Buffalo with quarterbacks E.J. Manuel and Kyler Orton. The year after he leaves, this is what I'm also interested in, they finished 12th and 13th. Big move up. Buffalo takes a jump up after the year after he leaves. Quarterback, Tyrod Taylor. Now, Tyrod's not an all-pro. He's not a Pro Bowl guy, but he's certainly an upgrade over E.J. Manuel and Kyle Orton. Fairly similar situation in Jacksonville, where they peaked. They kind of went like this. It was much more higher variance with the Jaguars, but he peaked with a 5 and a 6 with the 5th in points in 2017. I don't know about you, Nick, but I always think of the Packers as just kind of being this offensive juggernaut. Mm-hmm. But the year before that Hackett took over, they finished 14th in points, 15th in points in his first year, and then 1st in points in 2020. So he's got a pretty good track record of success at 3 different stops, 2 of them that were very, very tough. Buffalo with E.J. Manuel and Kyle Orton, and Jacksonville.
Yeah. And you did, interesting to me, I like Hackett. I don't know if you've seen the interview that's going around, or the coaching clinic that's going around, where he's talking about I believe it was a 5-step drop play action coaching clinic, and just a lot of energy, a lot of fun. He really reminds me of Kyle Brandt, like just his voice inflection and just how excited he is when he's talking. If you don't know Kyle Brandt, he's on Good Morning Football. We're on NFL Network. Fun guy. Does the Angry Run segment, if that rings a bell for anybody. But I do like Hackett a lot. You said something there that piqued my interest. You mentioned a few quarterback names, and a few of those guys are ones that are going to be available in this cycle. Now, that doesn't make them answers at quarterback, but they could be temporary solutions at quarterback. Somebody like a Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's getting older. We didn't see him this year, but he came off a pretty good year with the Dolphins, as well as Tyrod Taylor. Now, these are not guys who is going to get anybody excited, but they are options that can come in and compete and at least give you another adult in the room at the quarterback position, give you some flexibility. Chris has given us some flexibility with our coffee options in the morning with the stars, saying morning with the hearts. Good morning to you, Chris. It's always great to see you.
Yeah, there's again, there you shoot for the moon, take the big shot, take the big swing, and then start working your way down the list.
Yep.
Do you want a rookie quarterback in this class? Maybe.
Yep.
I don't think either one of us would necessarily advocate that for at 9. If you want a quarterback, move down, or take your second and move up a little bit. Trade another second and move up some if you can. Whatever. There's enough of guys there that you don't have to spend a high pick, a top 10 pick on a quarterback in this class. Roll with a rookie and Drew Lock if you miss on Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, and then spend some money on a guy. It's the Teddy Bridgewater formula, except you actually have another young guy to build. You've got Drew as an older guy now, he'd be in his 4th year on a rookie contract, and somebody that spend a little bit more money and go get somebody with better qualifications than Teddy Bridgewater. For all the talk, we're getting into the GM. How would you grade GM George Payton? And there's maybe 2 or 3 detractors talking about the Teddy Bridgewater deal was a bad deal for a general manager. The Teddy Bridgewater deal was a steal. It was a steal. If you're going to roll in with Drew Lock and it costs you a 6th-round pick and $4 million for Teddy Bridgewater, it didn't cost you anything. No. As a general manager, that's a good deal. That's good business. How it works out from there, again, could you have shot higher? Who was available that you could have gotten that was better? And I said the same thing about right tackle. Those are the questions. That you got Teddy Bridgewater for what you did was that's a deal you don't turn down, even if he's the 3rd guy.
Yep. I mean, especially for what they say about him in the locker room, the leadership there for $4.5 million, you could have been paying Andy Dalton $10 million, right? It's that kind of situation where that's a good one to have. And I think if there's any blame to be had as far as the quarterback stuff, you can put it the coaching staff, Shermer, whatnot. Although I still think Shermer's offense is a bad fit for Drew Lock. Maybe that matchup was never going to work, but who knows? You're just giving yourself options there. And I think that was a very low risk move. You want to talk about a risky move. I keep coming back to them, but like the Carolina Panthers, right? If they have butchered the quarterback position so much that they are the team that I point to saying, look, as long as you are not committing a multi-year mistake, you at least have flexibility season to season. They're paying Sam Darnold $15 million next year. They're still going to be digging out of Teddy Bridgewater and Cam Newton signings and whatnot. And that means
the Broncos went into the season and through the season that they still had money. Yes. So getting Teddy Bridgewater didn't prohibit you from getting. Now, your mistake might have been thinking that Teddy Bridgewater was the guy that could take this team to the playoffs. Obviously, there were too many flaws for that to happen, including the guys that you just fired. No. But could you have shot higher than that? Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. Otherwise, you come in as a first-year guy, and you've got you got your head coach and a former head coach saying, "Hey, we can win with this guy. Can you get him?" And I get him for a song. I did my job. You guys screwed up. I learned my lesson as a first-year general manager, and we'll move forward.
Yeah, they're in a bad situation because they foobarred that situation so badly. They would probably be one of the leaders for Deshaun Watson for a Russell Wilson, but they're $15 million in the hole, guaranteed, 100% guaranteed with that 5th-year option on Sam Darnold, and they have offensive line issues, quarterback issues, et cetera, et cetera. They're not going to be able to fix it because they committed multiple years to the wrong guy. So,
just one more year. So Sam Darnold, they just picked up his option is all they did.
Yeah, but that was last year too.
That's 2 years. That's 2 years. Yeah.
So which is with Bridgewater 4.5 for 1 year. That's you just move the calendar one spot. That's fine. I have no issue with that. It's not the solution, but it's not 4 years of the wrong answer. Vela Barber
cost you a 2nd-round pick plus
6,
$20 million to get Sam Darnold. Oops.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, not great. Vela Barber coming in here. Good morning, gents. Good to see you. We got Barb Reed in the house too. Hello. Hopefully you guys
feels like a new name. Welcome, Barb. Appreciate you joining us.
Barb. We also want to say hello to there's a comment here from our Twitch folks over. So don't forget to follow us on Twitch. Hey guys, which current player would benefit the most off of Hackett as the head coach? Maybe Judy because of the way they are using Adams in Green Bay. Do you have any thoughts on this, Scott?
This one's easy for me, Drew Lock.
Drew Lock. Why do you say Drew Lock?
No one has more to gain with the coaching change than the quarterback that the previous coaches despised.
Yeah.
I mean, simple. Now, Let's take that one off the table. And again, we kind of went through this a little bit last year, just saying how better quarterback play elevates everybody else. Yeah. So who has the most to gain? The receivers, for sure, including Noah Fant. We saw a little bit of Noah Fant getting the ball. You want Noah Fant catching the ball in stride, not doing a little button hook, not doing a hook or a stop pattern or a bubble screen and then taking off. You want him on the run. You want to hit him on a quick seam, a quick slant, down the line, speed out, something where he's already moving to get the best out of him. So everybody stands to gain on offense. Everybody. The one that has the most to gain, it would be, obviously, to me, it would be Drew Lock, just because the previous coaching staff did not want him as their quarterback. By default, he's gotten the most to gain.
Yeah, just the pass catchers for me. I think they have the most to gain. That could be with a quarterback update as well, but we've seen Hackett be able to isolate the Packers. Pass catchers outside of Adams are nothing to be really excited about, in my opinion. They got some guys who fit some fun niches there. Alan Lazard, Equani Mayes, St. Brown, Marquez, Valdez Scantling. Man, what a crazy group of names.
You get some of these aging announcers. I think of old Vince Dooley doing some of the Falcons games and the Georgia Bulldogs games, Georgia Broncos. Pushing 80 years old, trying to spit out some of these names. I start feeling a little bad for them.
Yeah. Travis coming in with the Stars. Good morning to you, Travis. I am curious if Reisner's time could possibly be up with Glasgow restructuring his contract to stay in Denver. And Denver goes offensive line with the 9th pick. If not, use as trade capital for Rodgers or Wilson. Okay, multiple things here. Could Reisner's time be up with Glasgow's restructuring? I don't think his time is up per se, but I do think that he's going to have to come in, compete. I feel he is probably the safest guy to come out of this as with a starting spot. But you have 5 guys now on the interior offensive line that you feel pretty good about. Obviously, Cushenberry went from like the worst center in football to a bottom 10-ish center this season. You hope he can take another step forward, or if not, he's going to be pushed. But I feel pretty good about that interior offensive line for the Broncos. And we saw it this season. Injuries are going to happen, especially you added an 18th game or 17th game to the regular season. You're going to rely on that depth at some point on the offensive line. You need 8 guys really on the offensive line that you feel comfortable with. And right now the Broncos, I feel pretty good about the interior 5 they have.
Yeah. And is his time up? No, for me, it's exactly the opposite. I wouldn't have been surprised at all if Glasgow was just flat out waived, if they had just cut him and gotten out from that contract and moved forward, because he had a bad year and he was really expensive. Instead, hey, listen, we love you. We love what you're capable of, but the market says this isn't going to happen. If you want to come back, we'd love to have you, but this is what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. So I actually think the opposite. The only thing I was sure of in July when I started really, covering the Broncos was Graham Glasgow does not play 2022 on this contract. No way. No way. Too much money for a guy that is meh. That he's okay. But as a depth option on a reduced price, sure, why not? And Ethan coming in from London, kind of saying something very similar, except being happy that these things are getting done. He says Peyton can research coaches, redo contracts all the time. Nice to have someone who can multitask. What do you think of the contract restructure of Glasgow? Nick, what are the numbers exactly? I haven't. I didn't look at them.
Give me 1 second. Stall for me for 1 second while I pull up the actual numbers.
So what I think about Glasgow is it gives him another chance with the Broncos. Otherwise, he was gone. You could have just waived him and saved a ton on the cap. You're still going to save a ton on the cap. That was the one thing I was absolutely positive about. You're coming off an injury. We want to give you another shot. I'm sure it's a team-friendly deal. He's motivated to go out and play hard. You've got somebody that knows the team, knows, I won't say the system, but knows the culture, knows his teammates. So it's a good deal to bring him back if you can bring him back for cheap. He was not playing 2022 on this contract, on his last contract. There was no way. He was a top 5 paid guard.
Yeah,
and nope. That doesn't happen unless you better be first team all pro.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is one of those deals that when the Broncos made it to me in that 2020 offseason, it screamed to me, we're doing everything we can to make sure that Drew Lock was right the right pick. Personnel wise, obviously we can argue about the coaching staff, but going out there and making Graham Glasgow a top 5 paid guard, going out there and making Melvin Gordon a top 5 APY paid running back, like those are immediate returns to help whoever's under center. And Glasgow did not work out to that same extent. I got to be careful what I say because he follows me on Twitter. But the Broncos and Graham Glasgow, they agreed to rework the contract, reducing his base salary from $8.4 million to $3.1 million, with the opportunity to make 1.4 back in playtime incentives. That playtime incentive, though, is pretty darn hard to hit. It is 90% of the offensive snaps in 2022.
So we'll give you $3 million, and if you're a starter, we'll give you a bonus.
Yep, exactly.
And you stay healthy.
Yep. So I don't know how feasible that is. Also, that 1.4 would all count on the 2023 cap, regardless. It would be guarantees on that 2023 cap. So
yeah, there's about $8 million. I feel like his number was somewhere in the neighborhood of 12, maybe even just a little higher last year.
Yep. Yeah.
So there's $8 or $9 million right there. There's my Cordarrelle Patterson money that I've been talking about with the Broncos. I would love to see Cordarrelle Patterson.
Yep. I want to get Barb real quick. This is not aimed at men.
The Broncos.
The show was not aimed at men. We just had the funny Manscaped read. So Barb, hope you're still around and you're hanging around because we want to make sure that we have all people in here. This is a show for everyone.
Another part of that is, if I were to get something like that from my wife as a gift, I'd take it as a hint.
Yeah, gosh,
listen, they can absolutely be gifts.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking for things for my wife, I appreciate the ads that are, for women, because I'm looking for gift ideas too. As I've said before, the one thing that guys want coming out of holidays is just not be in trouble. So I need all the gift ideas I can get.
Yeah. Nick, I got my Manscaped card revoked. Say it with your chest. What's one follower? Oh, talking about Graham Glasgow. Graham's been nice to me, and I like to have the insight from an offensive lineman. We chat some Monty Ball, also another guy I talked to. I got to keep my running backs don't matter takes to a thin margin. We got Lawrence Rivera coming in here saying, hey guys, these past 5 years, who's the best coach that we've had? Best coach the Broncos have had. I'm going to take a big cop out here. I'm going to say it's Mike Munchak. You didn't say head coach. Mike Munchak is.
No, I was thinking positional too, so yep. Who would it be? So, who's the best coach? Those are guys. So, I don't know. I don't know the staff well enough. I think, didn't Vic Fangio kind of, wouldn't linebackers kind of his thing?
Linebackers. Yep.
Well, then if he's working with the linebackers, then he's a pretty good linebackers coach. Because I think what you got out of the linebacker play this year with all of the injuries was pretty remarkable, actually.
Yeah.
And if you call them baseball, if you call them managers instead of there's a difference between a coach and a manager, I think Vic's probably a pretty good coach. I want him teaching technique and schemes and what to look for and stuff. But he was a crap manager, just terrible. So that was the big difference for me.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Brandon Staley was also in the Broncos coaching staff for a while, and obviously we can fight about and argue about his decisions on fourth down and whatnot. But he's one of the best young defensive minds in football, and they're gonna, I think, get that scheme right in Los Angeles. They have 4 superstars on that team right now, unfortunately for Denver. So they'll work on that depth, and I think Staley's also one that deserves a shout out. Travis Weber saying stars from Travis Tarbox. I thought Travis said that he wasn't going to be sending stars for a bit, but
so Travis is sending some for him. They're brothers in Travis. They're like this. So Travis Weber, appreciate you, and Travis Tarbox. Obviously, we always appreciate you, and what you can or cannot do is entirely your business, and we love you either way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to talk about obviously we can come back to the coaching stuff and everything, but I see there's some draft conversation going on here. Right now, Scott, Broncos have the 9th overall pick. Now, will the Broncos stay at 9? Will they trade back? Will they trade it for a quarterback? Who knows? But there is a website called the Mock Draft Database where they kind of compile every single mock draft that they can find and then tabulate them to see which direction teams are going, which positions, and what players the Broncos are looking at right now. So it gives you the top 3 players and then a big heaping of other. And I'll tell you, other right now is obviously in the lead because that's every other player, but 64.8% is other. Let's go up from 3, 2, 1 and just talk about the Broncos' top options right now, according to the mock drafts, which obviously will change a lot as we gather more information. So Scott, I'm going to play my favorite game, which my wife absolutely loves, where I know something and you don't, and I make you guess. So she loves it, guys. I
Yeah,
guess
I
it's the
usually
best.
go about my wife's favorite game is, what band is this? And she always says Leonard Skinner just to shut me up. Every once in a while, it is Leonard Skinner.
You got to only ask for that one.
But go ahead. What am I supposed to be guessing here?
Okay, so the Broncos, the top 3 guys that have been mocked to the Broncos at pick number 9 overall. First one here, it is
Matt Corral.
Matt Corral is on the list, but he's not number. Okay, we'll go 1, 2, 3 then. We'll go number 1, Matt Corral. Matt Corral being mocked to the Broncos, 14.8% of all mock drafts. I just saw from Charles McDonald over on USA Today's football site. I cannot remember what it is off the top of my head. Mocking Matt Corral to the Denver Broncos. Have you had a chance to watch much Matt Corral yet this season?
I haven't.
Ole Miss?
I haven't. And the thing is, I swear to God, every time I tried to watch him, all they did was run the ball.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm like, okay, great, but there will be time to go and watch him. So it was hard for me to get a feel for him because, like I said, they'd run the ball on 10 consecutive plays.
Yeah, Matt Corral is my favorite thing about Matt Corral. I have 2 favorite things. Number 1, it is obvious that dude is a big-time competitor. You can see the way he reacts with or interacts with his teammates, the way he plays just the football game in general, where they're playing a non-Division I team, and that dude is amped out there, smacking the pads of his offensive lineman out there, lowering his shoulder. Sometimes not the best thing, but doing those things. So he is a competitor. I would not doubt that at all. The other thing I really like about Matt Corral is that he is twitched. One of my favorite things about the quarterback position, and one of the things that the antithesis, I guess, of Joe Flacco is that when a guy enters the bottom of his drop, he just kind of sits back there and cannot move from that spot, almost like his feet are in quicksand. Matt Corral is explosive in the short areas, the quick twitch muscles. He can change directions quickly. You see that in the pocket. You see that outside the pocket. You see that when he's looking to throw, when he's creating. So I love that as well. That's one of my non-negotiables. You got to have some quick twitch in today's NFL to handle how the quick pass game is working, how to get the ball out quickly in those looks. And also it's really good for the RPO offense if you're looking for those quick twitch guys. Concerns about Matt Corral, he has been almost yearly injured in some way, where it's detrimental to his form. Once he gets injured, his play drops off.
And part of that, Nick, is his proclivity for running the ball because he is an athlete.
Yes.
Those things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive here. Those kind of go hand in hand to a certain extent.
Yes, I totally agree with you there. That concerns me a bit about him. I was going to connect that as well. And the other one is he does have a very slight frame. I think while he's listed at 6'1", 6'2", his base is relatively scrawny. Not like me. I got chicken legs out here. Who am I to talk? But like for an NFL prospect, putting on my GM hat or draft evaluator hat, he has a very scrawny base, which is concerning for him with the power. Now, you do think that maybe he does have some more overall velocity on his arm that he could add if he adds more muscle because, power generates from the feet up when you're throwing the football. But those are some main concerns for me. Schematically, also, I'm concerned that he's going to have a solid transition to the NFL because almost every single one of his throws at Ole Miss, and this is hyperbole, but like so much of it is this RPO quick slant kind of action where he's only making quick reads. And it scares me a lot. I know that there's some people that I respect that have compared his inability to process information as a passer as with complex multi-read plays to Drew Lock coming out of Mizzou, where it's just like there's one read and he's throwing it there, or it's one read and a check down. And a lot of stuff is layups that are still vertical throws, but they're layups from the read perspective.
Yeah, so you're going to get a lot more space on that read one. I mean, I've said before, just watch. If you see, I don't really care who the quarterback is. If they're at the NFL level, if they do a 5-step drop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plant their foot and throw in rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bang, it is completed 99% of the time. It's when they have to come off of that. That's when you start separating the quarterbacks. The one read, guys, every player in the NFL can throw one read, every one of them. It's then how do you separate the men from the boys? Real quick, getting back to, and then we'll come back to it. I want to call out Shane here real quick.
Yeah.
Appreciate you, Shane, coming in with some stars this morning, right on the top of the hour at 10 a.m. my time. It says, Albright is saying Quinn is the odds-on favorite for the head coach position. I'm personally hoping Hackett is the guy. If either of those get the job, who do you think they bring on as coordinators? Joe Judge as special teams coordinator? Real quick on Joe Judge, and then I'll circle back and let you take it from the top. I think a fired coach, I don't remember any of them coming back as special teams guys. They want offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, 1 year to rehabilitate and see what other jobs open and see if they can get back into it. So I wouldn't necessarily see that one. But, who else might you think? And it's too early for this for me, honestly. I just don't know the league well enough to say, oh, yeah, Quinn would go out and bring in X with him to be his guy.
Yeah. I like both these guys. I don't really have a strong connection with the quarterbacks. As far as Joe Judge, I don't know if you saw right now, I think the New York Post, which is always kind of, blurring the line between newspaper and tabloid. But Joe Judge, they got a picture of Joe Judge. What do you think is going on with Joe Judge's world right now?
He's rich.
And what... There's a picture of him at his house. They delivering, I kid you not, a pallet of beer and about 20 pizzas high. So he's consoling himself like a frat boy would. So I guess, respect him for that. It's some weird stuff going on.
What's his contract? $40 million at least that he's made to be 2-year coach of their. Yeah. Was he 2 years?
2 years.
2-year coach of the New York Giants and pocket $40 million. Fire me. I'll take that job.
Yeah, absolutely. So Joe Judge, maybe. We'll see. It's such a connections league that typically you see guys who have had some overlap somewhere where they're going to bring in a dude, unless your general manager is meddling. Hello, Elway with Rich Scangarello. But typically you're going to let your coaches pick those guys, and there needs to be some connection there. It doesn't always work out. Of course, Pat Shurmur and Vic Fangio. God, we're just easy anecdotes here. But that's what you tend to see. So the last thing about Matt Corral here, because you're pulling up supers, and I'll let you keep looking.
That's what I was going to say, is if we were ready to move on to the number 2 guy that you mentioned, you said there were 3.
Yeah, I want to do one more thing with Matt Corral, and I don't think it's a 1-for-1 with Drew Lock. I think Matt Corral, while there is some of the processing and hero ball mentality stuff and like locking onto that first read that scared me with Lock coming out, I think Matt Corral throws a much better football in terms of giving his players to do something after the catch. I feel like he puts it right in that. It's not just in the frame of the wide receiver. It's right at this point where the receiver is in stride and can go catch another 20 yards or create another 20 yards after the catch, which we did not see from Drew Lock in college and didn't really see from him in the NFL as well. Lock's a little more of a general accuracy thrower, where I think Corral is more pinpoint. And I think that's really important. People in that last game of the season against the Chiefs were saying Jerry Jeudy should have jumped up and dove for that ball. Jerry Jeudy had 5 yards of separation. There's no need for him to have to jump up for the ball unless it's a poorly thrown football. And Matt Corral probably would have hit in that one, and Judy's off to the races, maybe even for a touchdown.
For me on that play, you can get a good idea of, we talk about bias all the time. We're all biased. That's what makes us who we are. Our opinions are formed and what we feel about things. That's what bias is. We're all biased.
Yeah.
So there are a couple plays in there that I think do a good job of rooting out where are your biases. Was that throw on the money? No. Could Jerry Jeudy have made a better effort? Yes. Yeah. So there's a little bit of blame both ways, I believe. You don't want your quarterback to have to be perfect, and it'd be nice if Jerry Jeudy made a play to bail out an overthrow, a little bit of an overthrow. So see things both ways. And for me, the big one is Melvin Gordon, the Melvin Gordon fumble. That one just shows me where is your bias on this? Because in that play, if you're getting hit the moment you take the ball and you fumble, it's understandable. It is. Now, what you're hoping for as the tight end who blows a blocking assignment, or however that guy gets through there, what you're hoping for is the guy behind you can bail you out.
Yep.
So, yes, somebody up front made the mistake that led to that fumble. But I'm hoping my running back can bail me out, and he didn't. So I'm a little upset with that too. But you see the narrative that goes, Melvin Gordon. I understand why Melvin Gordon fumbled, but it would have been nice if he could have bailed somebody out there. So, Jerry Jeudy, I would have liked to seen him put
more
forth
effort.
What at least appeared to be a little more effort on that play. And yes, Drew Lock could have thrown a better ball. There's plenty to go around. It's never just black and white when we talk about football plays.
Yeah, and in my opinion, from watching football for as much as I have, especially wide receivers over the last 3 or 4 years when the Broncos have kind of needed an influx in it, Jeudy getting that much separation, he's already done the hardest part of the job. Guys don't typically get that open in the NFL. That's a wide open throw in the NFL. I do think it might have been opposite hash mark, not as impressive as an opposite hash mark in college football, but still, that's one where Jeudy, you want him to dive out for it, but like it's not a layup, but that's a mid-range shot, and you want your quarterback to hit a mid-range shot that's that open.
Yep. So I, like I said, it's not 100% one way or the other on this.
Yeah.
I would like to see Drew Lock throw a better ball. I would like to see Jerry Jeudy put forth a better effort. Either one of those things happen.
Yeah.
And your percentages of completing that pass are a lot higher. Peter coming in with
and then
stars.
real quick, excited. the biggest thing here. Sorry, Peter Milton, we love you. Real quick, don't want to completely dump on Drew Lock and Jerry Jeudy in this one because they come back later on in the game, the opposite hash mark, the left side, and Drew Lock throws one with a little bit more air. Jerry Jeudy goes up and gets the football. One of the best plays of the game. They learned, they grew, they made a big play, they corrected for the mistake earlier. God bless. It's amazing.
Young players learning and getting better and improving. No,
in the same game. It's beautiful.
That's good again, and that's part of it. But Peter comes in and says the fun is already to begin. It's going to be a very busy offseason. That Glasgow deal was a nice deal to start with.
Absolutely.
I agree. When we started talking about, I think I rounded up to like $70 million in cap room the other day. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this deal. I'm like, there's about 10 that you're going to open up. Whatever you think it is, add 8 to 10 on it because Glasgow's deal's coming off the books too.
Yeah. And it really puts the Broncos in a great spot going forward on the interior offensive line. Do they want to go out and spend a bleep ton of money for, I almost said a bad word, a bleep ton of money for a Ryan Jensen at center, for a Brandon Scherff at right guard? Probably not, but they could. They have the flexibility, but you go into it with such an incredibly high floor with those 5 guys. You do need to find out the right tackle spot, the right tackle, and I guess maybe not the backup tackle because Calvin Anderson is a restricted free agent, and I would assume he's back for pretty darn cheap with that second. I would put a second-round tender on him. But that's an interesting one. We got Elliot Sean coming in saying, thanks for the content, fellas. Thank you, Elliot. God bless you. Looks like a nice Broncos Gator you got there. Listening from Navajo Nation in Arizona. Pretty awesome there out there. I've never been to Arizona.
Michael isn't there. Michael's not alone. Michael he tells us almost every time he comes on, hey, just representing the AZ. Yeah. But I know we got a few listeners in Arizona. So Broncos country is strong in Arizona. And that makes sense considering you have to go way east to find somebody, but you go a little bit north and you get up to does this might be a question for another day, but do the Las Vegas Raiders tap into that Arizona market just a little bit? Because other than that, the Chargers, and who'd you rather root for, the Broncos or the Chargers? Come on,
man. Don't ask me that because they have Justin Herbert, who I absolutely adore. I know these quarterbacks will be rookies, but is any of them an upgrade over Locke? If Denver
talking about the kind of putting a bow on the Matt Corral talk before we move on to whoever comes in at number 2, you're going to let me guess if I can get one of the next 2 guys.
I have 2 quarterbacks right now that I think would come in and be a day one equivalent to Drew Lock as far as what you're able to do offensively. Obviously, it's not a 1-for-1 because they're different quarterbacks with slightly different skill sets. But as far as ones I would be confident in stepping in and playing day one and not being completely overwhelmed.
And those 2 are Matt Corral and...
Not Matt Corral. Not Matt Corral. He's going to need time. That RPO offense that Layden Kiffin runs...
He's not ready.
Unless you're going to completely change your offense, what you're doing right now, and run that kind of fake offense that Tua was running this year with Miami with just purely RPO looks. I don't think that he could come in day one and be a starter. He needs to work on a drop back pass game, more reads, and he has talent, but I don't think he's one that I would start day one. I also would not start Sam Howell day one. That's another guy he's at least shown multiple types of offenses to run. I really do like that. Somebody that I talked with said, okay, you watch Sam Howell 2021, go back and watch 2022 as well, because don't be totally fooled on Sam Howell's current season after losing 4 NFL caliber players, just like people were fooled for Josh Allen losing 3 NFL caliber players going from his junior to senior year. And it was a different kind of offense in 2020 with Sam Howell. So some interest there, but not either of those guys. I think they need time.
So you're going to leave me hanging then?
I am going to leave you hanging. One of them is this is a good transition. One of them is number 3 on the mock draftable database for the Denver Broncos. He's somebody who has a lot of starts, but he's not the one with the smaller hands.
Okay, I was going to say, who is it? Kenny Pickett? I don't know who you're going with at this point. I'm not guessing anymore. Carson Strong.
Nope. Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ritter is one who I think he is the best processor in this draft class. He operates a lot of full field kind of reads. He's done a lot of stuff with Cincinnati. He has a lot of snaps as well. Obviously, he's not playing in the SEC or the Big Ten, but very, very talented, and I think a very high floor from the mental side of things. So, Tim Greenwood saying Kenny Pickett and Desmond Ritter, those are the two that I think could come in and compete with Drew Lock day one, just because of how much they put on their plate mentally and the volume of snaps that they've had. They've played a lot of football.
So did you just give it away that two of the three guys that are mocked the heaviest to the Broncos are quarterbacks? Now, if you remember last year, we talked about, why do you bring in a veteran? Why didn't you go quarterback? Because there was still belief, and there's one guy trying to save his job. Vic Fangio, coming off a 4-12 season, can't go with a rookie quarterback if he's trying to save his job. Can't do it. A rookie quarterback was not going to make this team much better going this year. You're looking at a similar season, 7-10. It's like, yeah, but we would have had hope. We would have had – that's fine, but that doesn't save Vic Fangio's job. I'm like, well, Vic Fangio's only worried about his job. Yes, he is. He's like, I gotta win now. I gotta win this season. I can't have a third straight losing season. They'll can me. Yeah. So you can't blame Vic Fangio for not choosing Drew Lock if he firmly believed that he couldn't win with him. It's like, okay, yeah, Drew is going to be better moving forward, but I'm not going to be here. Well, that doesn't do me any good. And sorry, but that's life as a human being. What do you expect Vic Fangio to do in that case?
Yeah.
So going back, so why didn't you take a quarterback? Because they had to win this year, and a rookie quarterback wasn't going to help you. So the original question was, is there anybody that's a day one upgrade over Drew Lock? Probably not. Not in this class. Probably not.
An equivalent, I would say.
Fourth-year Drew Lock is going to be ahead of any of these quarterbacks coming in. If you're drafting a quarterback, it's not for 2022. As we said in the summertime, if Teddy Bridgewater wins this job, you've got a new quarterback in 2023. So Drew Lock could be a holdover. Someone else could come in and be a holdover. If you draft a guy this year, he's not necessarily an upgrade. You're building for the future, and that sucks, but at least there's a path there. Now you see a path. We got a new general manager. We got a new head coach. We got a new ownership. We got a rookie quarterback that's learning the ropes, and by God, 2023, we're going to come out firing.
Yep. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for sure. I think Pickett and Ritter are the two that make the most sense as far as day one, but I'm not drafting a quarterback for that day one impact. So I'm thinking 3-4 years down the road, what does that guy look like? So that's the biggest thing. Desmond Ritter is number 3 on this mock draft database for the Broncos with the 9th overall pick. It's really a hodgepodge with this quarterback competition this season for the number 1 pick in the draft. It's unfortunate for Corral. He's not going to be at the Senior Bowl. The rest of these guys are. So I think that's going to hold a lot of weight in analyst brains. I'm very jealous. You get to be down there. So I'm going to be leaning on your eyes to let me know what's going on down there.
I video everything. So
there we go.
I'll have every throw. I'll have every throw of the quarterbacks on certain days that I'm watching them. So,
but Desmond Ritter,
what I've always, as a media scout, I've always said, I don't want to just tell you what I see. I want to show you what I see. And then you can kind of make your own decisions. Yeah.
Well, Desmond Ritter, Matt Corral was in 14.8% of the mocks going to the Broncos at 9. Desmond Ritter's third at 9.3. There was some reports earlier this season that the Falcons really like Desmond Ritter as well. So it will be interesting. The Broncos will pick before the Falcons in the second round because of how the strength of schedule flips. If they have the same record, then it flips every single round.
I did not know that.
Yep.
So they do snake it on that tiebreaker.
They snake those on the same record tiebreakers per round. So Broncos could be interested in there in that second round there with that pick, but we'll see. So the Broncos, Desmond Ritter. I like Desmond Ritter. I was hoping that he would play better than he did against Alabama. Granted, Alabama with Will Anderson against Cincinnati's offensive line was never going to work out that well, and it didn't. But I think Desmond Ritter, you can come in and run a Carson Wentz-esque offense where it's a lot of run, it's a lot of stuff with the quarterback read and using his athleticism and tools to get into solid looks. I think Ritter is slightly less strength, both in arm talent and body, but he's also not making as many boneheaded decisions. It's just the erratic accuracy that you see from Desmond Ritter, but he is toolsy. And if you're there at the end of round 1, early round 2, I'd have no issue with that swing.
If we're playing this game in a vacuum and I don't have to worry about ticket sales, public perception, and all that kind of stuff, I'm moving Matt Ryan and I'm tanking.
Yeah, that's
2022, and I'm getting my quarterback in 2023. Yep. And that might still happen, even if you go, you're a proponent for it. Well, we drafted Desmond Ritter with a number 8. Well, we went 2-15. Okay, well, you're going to get another quarterback. You're not passing on Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. You're going to move Desmond Ridder, or you'll figure something out. So, the Falcons taking a quarterback with their number one would still surprise me. It would still surprise me. So, sitting number 9 for the Denver Broncos, I don't think you have to worry about the Falcons taking your quarterback. And on the flip side of that, they're probably going to take a player you would want.
Yeah, it's going to be Kyle Hamilton. I'm just ready for my heart to be ripped out with that one. I'm just going to keep saying it. Also, because it'd be great.
Not going to 8. He's not dropping to 8. Jets at 4. That's as far as he goes. We did our mock draft yesterday. Jets at 4. That's as far as Kyle Hamilton goes.
I just remember Derwin James falling all the way to 17, which is still mind-boggling to me. The Broncos would have been better off taking Derwin James at 5 than Bradley Chubb.
Unfortunately, the young players like Drew Lock and Jerry Jeudy learn from their mistakes a lot faster than these old GMs.
Yeah. I'd also think it was probably a little bit of counter to Jamal Adams going 6 overall and not living up to that draft pick, and then Derwin James
overcorrection.
Yep, an overcorrection, which you tend to see. Travis is not overcorrecting here, there, but the stars. At the right price, and even with the fumbles, I'd like to see Gordon stick around. Him and Williams are a good 1-2 punch. I don't disagree with you at all. I would be fine doing that. I also think that running back by committee is the way to go. A lot of it is going to depend on scheme. Like if they're going to run more of a New England Earhart Perkins or whatever the name is for that offensive scheme that New England likes to run, you probably want a running back who maybe is a little bit more of a Duke Johnson mold, who can be flexed out as a wide receiver. But again, Williams coming back, Gordon coming back, it's going to come down to the money. I wouldn't be against it, but I'm also not overpaying.
At his age, Melvin Gordon's following the money. This will be his last chance at a decent contract. I don't think the market for him is going to be that great. No. Certainly not going to be 8. I don't see anywhere near that he's going to get 8. He may be able to get a multi-year deal at 5, which I think prices you out of the range for the Broncos. Even if you are saving that money, I think you're better off giving half of those carries that he had, half of those touches to Javonte Williams, then you got Mike Boone on contract for another. So if he got 200 touches and change, give 100 of those to Javonte Williams, give 100 of them who you've got, you're pouring a couple $1 million to Mike Boone and then take that money and pour it somewhere else. But I would like to have him back too at a discounted rate, but we'll see if anybody wants to give him a multi-year deal around $5 million. I don't know. That'll be an interesting one to follow for the free agents.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Broncos could look to bring in another running back, but we'll see. We got Diane coming in saying, listening from Modesto, California. Enjoy your broadcast. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Diane. Good morning.
Early.
Yeah, it is early. I would know. All these early shows. Sometimes, depending on how the sleep is the night before, I need to like IV coffee into me before I start going. Otherwise, I'm going to say the wrong name of the show that we're doing. Like on Monday. God, Monday was rough. But thank you so much, Diane. The last player here we want to get in, we got about 5-10 minutes left. So the number 2 player, and Scott said he's not guessing anymore, so I'm not going to make him guess anymore.
Guess. I'll guess once.
Okay, I'll give you some hints.
I think right tackle is important. I think edge is important.
It's a position that I would not.
But I don't know who they think's going to fall. It's not either of those 2 positions, and I don't know. Then I'm nowhere close.
It's somebody who I could see going top 10. I personally wouldn't advocate for it, but it's Nakobi Dean. Nakobi Dean, okay. Number 17, over on Georgia, 6 foot, 230 pounds, but an absolute heat-seeking missile. I think he is similar to I would like him at will, personally. I compare him a lot to maybe not as good in coverage, but better downhill than like a Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah last season. Very small. I think Dane Brugler used the comp of Jonathan Vilma, but he's a heat-seeking missile all around the field. Also, he is an absolute just like insanely fiery competitor. I don't know if you saw the play where it was the other linebacker from Georgia went out there and made the wrong play, and he is whipping this dude on the field, like smacking him and saying like, "What are you doing?" Blah blah blah. And then the opposite linebacker corrects it later on, and then Nakobi Dean's the first guy there gassing him up. So he is a dog on the field.
And that's good coaching. You know, yeah. I coach kids, and I will, if I'm going to criticize you, effort and attitude, and those are the kind of stuff that I get onto. But when it's corrected, you overpraise. That way they realize this guy's not just on my butt. You know, he's actually paying attention. He actually cares. Nakobi Dean, while you're like, man, that's a little high for a linebacker, is a guy you could get behind in a hurry. 3-year graduate from the University of Georgia with an engineering degree. Okay, that's not easy to do. That speaks a little bit to your work ethic as a full-time student athlete. I got a different comp for you. Because when I'm watching him, I'm thinking Thomas Davis, another Georgia linebacker. Thomas Davis actually came through as a safety at the University of Georgia before he ended up moving a little bit closer as he kept getting bigger. Nakobi Dean is a guy that will sew up your linebacker position for the next decade. Be the captain of your defense for the next decade. We asked, where are the leaders on this team? Man, he makes every single player around you better. He is somebody that you could be really, really excited to have on your team. Even if it's not for the flash plays that he's making, I cannot overstate this enough. Everybody around him is going to get better with Nakobi Dean on the team. Like I think we said yesterday, Nick, I'm calling it now. In 20 years, in the year 2042, Nakobi Dean is going to be one of the hottest head coaching candidates in the world.
Yeah.
So he's an easy guy to root for, and he makes plays all over the field.
Yeah. I like Nakobi Dean. I'm not a big advocate for a linebacker in the top 10. I think that you can find linebackers day 2 almost every single season. So that's one that scares me a tad. Also, Nakobi Dean's not going to be, he's not a fit for every single scheme. If you're asking Nakobi Dean to play in a 3-4 where he's coming downhill, having to fill in gaps, scraping against offensive linemen in the box constantly, you're going to have a bad time. You're not going to maximize him to his total potential because he is 6 foot 225, and he doesn't look like Darius Leonard, who looks like a pterodactyl out there with his length. That's not the type of player that he is. So you're going to want him playing more of a 4-3 scheme where he can be covered up by multiple 300 plus pound guys covering up the A and B gaps and let him roam sideline to sideline, be a sweeper of sorts in those short area spaces where he can eat up space just like he has for Georgia. So in the Vic Fangio scheme, I don't see it. But in the Dan Quinn scheme, maybe there's much more free roaming from the linebacking position with Dan Quinn, as we've seen this year. He wouldn't play the Micah Parsons role, obviously, but more of a sideline to sideline sweeper, the will of sorts. I could see that for Nakobi Dean. Maybe even, what do you think about a Deion Jones-like role for Dean? Is that possible? Because Deion Jones is also small for linebacker.
Nakobi Dean's a little bit bigger than him. He's still carrying up. Deion Jones is like 6 foot 205. I mean, he's small.
That's concerning.
He's fast, but then he tears up a knee and you lose some of that speed, and you have a problem. Nakobi Dean is not necessarily speed. He doesn't have to have all of his speed to be a great player. It's not, Deion Jones is his biggest and best skill set is his speed. And if that drops a little bit, you're in trouble. Nakobi Dean is so much more than that. Nakobi Dean is a guy who could play in the NFL for 20 years. I mean, he's just, I can't say enough about how much I would love to have this guy on my team. Anyway, he'd be one of the first picks. He'd be I would love that pick for the Denver Broncos, even if it's a linebacker. Again, I'll just repeat it one more time. We talk about the passion. We're the leaders. That's it. You got him. It's Mike Singletary out there. Not necessarily the impact of the play, but it's somebody that who's in charge, and he's got the respect of everybody out there. And he'll hold accountability is a word I heard a lot. The lack of accountability out there. Who's holding these guys accountable? Nakobi Dean will hold you accountable. I promise you.
Yeah.
It'd be a great pick. I'd love that pick, honestly.
Yeah, I like Dean, and I think he does make my top 20 picks. I have Devin Lloyd slightly higher. I think Devin Lloyd is a much more loose coverage player. He kind of moves he came in as a safety and then was moved down to the linebacker position. He moves much more like a safety, and his drop back zones with his length and his fluidity, I think he's going to always be a better coverage player than Dean. If I'm looking for a downhill sideline to sideline track and pursuit kind of heat seeking missile, I'm leaning Dean. If I'm looking for somebody to drop back and play some zones and kind of stop the middle of the field passing and muck up zones for tight ends and those kind of looks, then I'm leaning Devin Lloyd.
And I just look a little deeper. I look a little bit more at the intangibles.
Yeah.
If I'm looking for somebody to come in and whip my defense into shape, I want Nakobi Dean. If I need a leader on this team, a man among men, I want Nakobi Dean. Everything else is how close are they? To me, when we're talking about does this guy fit the scheme a little better than this guy, that's too close for me. I want the intangibles Nakobi Dean.
I think you have to lean into the scheme first before you get to the intangibles.
Schemes change. We talked about that beginning of the year.
Schemes change, but in the
top scheme, you're firing your defensive coordinator a year later. Schemes change constantly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you. But in the top 10, you want to make sure that you get a guy that at least fits what you want to do. Otherwise, you don't want to draft somebody and immediately put them in a situation where they can't succeed. I know that schemes change. I
promise you, Nakobi Dean can do whatever you ask him.
I don't want him taking
linebacker position.
Yeah.
So, but that's do I want to go that high with a linebacker? That to me becomes the bigger question. Peter's been waiting patiently. Which positions would you prioritize in free agency over the draft? Linebacker.
God bless it. The running back of the defense.
You got one of your own free agents right there. Which positions are supposed to be weak in this draft other than quarterback? I think there's some bigger interior defensive linemen this year, because last year that was a little bit of a problem. I think Christian Barmore was the guy that goes off, and naturally he goes to the Patriots. That's where he went, wasn't it? He went to the Patriots.
And he was amazing.
Seeing him this year.
He was amazing this year.
And he was really good. That's like
amazing.
Of course he was. But again, I think that's one of the places you need to prioritize one of your own free agents is the linebacker. I was very happy with the way the young guys played on the inside, especially the replacement guys. But I want a little bit more of a veteran presence. I want a little bit more of a sure thing. Again, Nakobi Dean makes a lot of sense here, but again, that's a rookie there.
Yeah.
So I might look for an inside linebacker.
Well, come back to Peter real quick. We got DWI guys coming in with a flashing red that we need to get to. I can click the DWI.
Jake, I got you in the hopper at 10:22. I'll come right back to you.
I'll click the DWI guys. You can save these other ones and click them so you don't lose them. Ethan, 100 pounds. God bless, man. Good show, gents. Have a good weekend. Starting a new higher Hackett fund. I'm all about that if it's flashing red like that. So higher Hackett fund.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't want to be an enemy of DWI guys, because he started the Fire Fangio fund, the triple F, #FF. I'm not going to say that's why it happened, but
I think Ethan is actually George Payton in disguise. He's tuning in. We go back. Payton's getting his best ideas from us. As far as positions to sign, I think I'm a huge proponent that you need to fill out your roster where you're comfortable going with any single pick in any direction in the draft. So what are the positions that are gaping holes right now in the Broncos roster? Right tackle, you lost Massey. Are you comfortable with Calvin Anderson there? I'm not. So I'd want to bring back a competent right tackle, a borderline starter tackle. So you go into the draft where you're not pants around your ankles if you don't walk away with one in the first 2 rounds. Don't want to be in that position. The other position is linebacker. Like you talked about, 3 of the Broncos' top 4 off-ball linebackers are set to be free agents. Bring back one of those guys so that way you don't go into the draft having to take Nakobi Dean or your defense plummets it with the 9th overall pick. And the other one, I think you'd probably need a defensive back as well, a nickel back or a safety that can come in, because you're losing Kareem Jackson, you're losing Kyle Fuller, you're losing Bryce Callahan. Outside of that, a lot of that is going to depend on the scheme. If you're switching to Dan Quinn's scheme, you're going to need some different type of bodies. And you don't want to go into the draft where you have to get a Leo kind of rusher or a Cash or something to fit Quinn's defense, because that's bad resource allocation. You need to take a open-minded approach in the draft. So maybe you're bringing in somebody like a Randy Gregory or a specific type of linebacker or a more dichotomous safety than what you have from Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson to play those single high schemes more so.
Well, and maybe in a 4-3, Bradley Chubb puts his hand down in the rubber pellets. Actually, there's still a lot of grass in the that's the joke I use, that they used to call it, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. I call it 3 yards in a cloud of rubber pellets now. So you put your hand in the dirt. Bradley Chubb might put his hand down and be a 4-3 end and could flourish in something like that. But you're going to need you're going to need a legit defensive end that can put pressure on it, and not the hybrid defensive tackles that are playing hold your man down in a 3-4. Yeah. So, that's something you'd be interested in. Jake coming in with a super, appreciate you, Jake. Appreciate your patience on this. It says, hey guys, this is all part of General Payton's plan. Manning is our owner, and then draft blue chip core players, and then pick Arch Manning in 2025. Oh goodness. You didn't mention a coach, because if you're picking Arch Manning in 2025, you probably aren't a new coach, because 3 years will be up and you've got the number 1 overall pick.
Yeah.
So if you're picking Arch Manning, there's I'm hoping for your sake, you're better than that through the next 3 years, because while it's tough, to say, well, it's a long ways away, my friend and colleague, Chad Simmons, picked Trevor Lawrence out as a 9th grader. Said we were doing a campaign for Gatorade, and they wanted to know who's the next guy. And he goes, Trevor Lawrence. This is a 9th grader.
Yeah.
It's one of the things I really liked about Trevor was he's had those expectations on his shoulder since he was 15 years old and met or exceeded them the whole way through, all the way to a number 1 pick. Is Arch Manning like this? I don't know for sure. I haven't watched him as much. I always go in with a healthy dose of skepticism when guys that already have names are getting blown up like that. But the first time I saw Trevor Lawrence, I went, "Oh yeah, he's legit." So I'm looking forward to watching him and finish up his watching him as a high school guy and moving through as a college guy.
Yeah, no, he's I don't even know what the NFL would do. Like if the Mannings own the Broncos partially and then Arch comes in, like do they have to separate them or can Arch be like I'm obviously going to play for the team that my family owns? Like what are you doing? Like I don't give a hoot about these other teams. The other teams can still draft him, but like if Eli can force his way
players.
out.
I have a hard time, watching so much soccer where the clubs are actually owned. They're individually owned. I almost think of these guys. I don't think of them as Denver Broncos. I don't think of them as Atlanta Falcons. I think of them as NFL players who are getting assigned to a different branch of the big company. So you're a franchise. You're part of the league. We'll go where we tell you to go. It's the way it is.
It is the way it is. It is the way it is. All right, well, let's get to this one from Phil because we're already at over an hour. Good morning, Nick and Scott. Good morning to you, Phil. Hope you're doing well. Usually not up this early. Well, keep joining us, man. It's a good time. Get your coffee ready or whatever floats your boat. Love your show. Any interest in Kellen Moore? I have read he is wanting the Minnesota head coaching job. That's interesting. Minnesota's in a really bad situation as far as the cap space going forward. Obviously, you have the albatross that is $45 million cap hit of Kirk Cousins. But the one thing that Minnesota has two things going for it that Denver does not. The ownership situation in Minnesota, those are known as some of the best owners in football. They bend over backwards to give you all the resources that you need, and they give you a very long leash. So if you have one or two bad seasons, you're not out the door off the cuff. Obviously, there could be one or two very bad seasons or something happens where you're out, but they're very supportive of their coach and they're going to give you multiple chances to get it right. The other thing is, I feel like the sun is setting on the NFC North or rising for these other teams potentially. There's no way, I hate that, knock on wood. There's no way the Packers can get another Hall of Fame head or coach after this and start another cycle. It just doesn't happen. Quarterback. Excuse me, quarterback. Yeah.
I don't know. They've only had 3 quarterbacks in their franchise history. They get a quarterback every 20 years. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, eventually that sun will set. I've been telling my Packer friends that for 15 years, but eventually that sun will set and they're going to be kind of like the Broncos have gone through recently. This mediocre to below average piddling of quarterbacks play that they've seen.
They get to figure out how the rest of us live.
Yeah.
Throw Jordan Love in there for the next, 2 seasons. You can figure out how the rest of us live.
So the NFC North, I think, is going to be up for grabs here pretty soon. That makes it pretty interesting. And unfortunately for Broncos fans, AFC West is going to be rough. Obviously, you still can win any given season if you have a good team, but like those other teams are, you like to talk about coaches being born on third base. Those teams are born on third base when you have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, where you're starting off at home plate and have to go all the way around. It's hard until you have that guy. But so it would make sense if Kellen Moore was maybe more interested in that position than Denver off the cuff. I would be scared bleepless coming to the AFC West with Mahomes and Herbert.
For me, looking at Kellen Moore, I have a question for you. My question is, what are your short-term goals? What are your short-term goals? Yeah. Is this? Are you planning on drafting a rookie quarterback and, in a sense, starting over a little bit? Then, yeah, bring him in. Bring in Kellen Moore and bring that guy in. Or are you saying we've got the roster now, we want to make a run? Because for me, 33-year-old Kellen Moore might not be that guy to walk in and command the room and have the bona fides to come in and say, all right, I'm going to lead this team that's ready to go now to the Super Bowl. I want somebody with a little more experience. So what are your goals? If I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, Kellen Moore is number 1 on my list. He's the number 1 guy. I want him coming in and coaching Trevor Lawrence for the next 15 years. That's my guy. If I'm the Denver Broncos, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that's where I want to go. But if I'm George Payton and I say, okay, we're farther away than I think, we're going to go young. We've got a nice young core of talent, and we're going to make a run in the next 3 years. Then Kellen Moore, they can learn and grow together. But that's not how I see it. I think they feel like they've got a window and they want a veteran quarterback to come in. Do I want Kellen Moore to come in and coach Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. Do I want him coaching Russell Wilson? Maybe that's a little bit closer. But again, for me, the question becomes, what are your goals? Are your goals is I want to start here and have a continual upswing, even if it's slower and gradual over the next decade, then that's your guy. If it's I want to reach the top of this mountain in the next 2 years, he's not my guy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm looking at what the Colts have done recently, what the Eagles have done recently. I'm wanting to build a team, regardless of the coach, invest in the trenches and take a swing on the quarterback, but not be totally all in on that quarterback. You've heard me say it. You know how I feel about that position. Actually got a little Twitter play yesterday for that take. We're taking a guy in the top 100 every year and just having him play, Coliseum style. Best guy wins and gets the snaps. Go earn it. Good luck. Michael Ronquillo coming in. Great show, guys. Today on Broncos for Breakfast with Nick and Scott. Best morning podcast. Go Broncos. Well, I don't know how much we're competing with other folks out there. I know there's some radio shows that are morning drives, but best morning podcast. I will take it. That's I'll put that one on the gravestone.
Yeah, best morning podcast. Hey, we're happy that you're happy. We like
thank you so much.
We like having you.
Yeah. I just have to disparage myself a little bit because I don't take compliments the best. I'm uncomfortable now. Please don't compliment me.
That's why I skipped over a nice one that was it Chris? Was it Chris that said it?
Somebody said Diego said something really nice, saying that we were their favorite. But that's okay. Let's get to this last question here. If there's any other supers, we can get to them. But we're already at an hour and 10. Time flies. One of my favorite pre-show jokes with Scott is that, hey, let's keep it a crisp 45. And here we are, almost half an hour later.
What do I say?
Good luck.
Sure we will.
Yeah, sure.
Sure we will. Okay, Nick.
It's just too fun. And you guys are great too. And 200, according to YouTube, 242 people in here on a morning show on Thursday. That's incredible. You guys are awesome. Diego coming in. What quarterbacks do you guys think will be available in the second round that might make sense for the Broncos? If there are any other super, Scott, I'll let you comb over this for this.
Yeah, but while you're thinking about that, Travis, as we were talking about I get a little bit delayed. So sometimes we have to kind of have a callback to what we were talking about. And we were talking about the linebackers. And I think Travis, aren't you kind of a middle of the country kind of guy?
He's Utah.
Isn't Devin Lloyd like your guy?
Yeah, he's Utah.
So guy. I get that. I get that for sure. Nakobi Dean, I definitely have not only recency bias, but locality bias. And anybody coming out of the University of Georgia, which is an hour and a half from me, in a 3-year degree and plays the way he does with the type of fire and passion he does, I'm going to root for that kid. I promise you that.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as quarterbacks there, I'm hoping that maybe somebody is scared off by Carson Strong's knee, and the Broncos are like, well, it's already hard enough to hit on the quarterback position, so we don't even know what's going on. We don't even know what the outcome will be. So we'll take a swing on Carson Strong, hope that the knee is fine. And if not, we'll be back looking next year. But at least we didn't burn a first-round pick on a quarterback that we didn't love. So Carson Strong is one that makes sense for me there, that round 2 spot. After that, you would assume that maybe one of Howell or Ritter might be down there as well, because I don't think you're going to see 6 quarterbacks go in the first round. Somebody's going to be there early second. And I really do actually like the top 6 quarterbacks in this class. I don't love any of them, which is the biggest issue, but one of those guys is going to be there. I think the more interesting conversation is who's not going to be there. It seems like Kenny Pickett and Matt Corral are the least likely to be there. It also does seem like while the media folks are not as high on Malik Willis, NFL folks seem to be very high on Malik Willis, but things could change after the Senior Bowl.
There was one more in here, says, and Ruben Avita comes in. Appreciate you, Ruben. Said, love Shelby and Purcell, but our run stopping seemed to take a huge step back in the trenches. I know a lot of injuries, but it still is absurd at times. It also didn't help when we traded Vaughn. His run stopping contain was underrated. His ability to set the edge was definitely overrated. That was one of the first things I noticed as I started studying the Broncos. He wasn't just a pin your ears back and go get the quarterback and stat pad sacks type of guy. Chubb, Cooper, Reed do not seem to have that in their game, at least not yet, but hopefully we address both sides of the lines in the draft. Good show, guys. Appreciate it. Now, we actually did a show in the summertime about what are some of the concerns of this team, and we talked about the interior line and the depth and the run stopping, and I'll tell you what, I don't remember it being like this, but let me mention some of the guys that are paid higher than your starting nose guard, Mike Purcell. Punter, Sam Martin. Kicker, Brandon McManus. And those are the 2 big ones. You're paying your kicker and your punter more than you're paying your starting nose guard, and you're wondering why you're having trouble stopping the run? Man, that ain't rocket science. You need a better investment on the interior line for sure. Trade down candidate. Okay, let's say, Nick, we trade down and we hit 15 and we pick up another second rounder. Jordan Davis at 15 fixes this problem.
Yeah, it does. I think the Broncos' issues were stopping the run this year, no doubt. That was a big issue on the defensive line in general. But I think it is the front 7. It's not as much the interior defensive line as it is the outside linebackers in the linebacker position. The Broncos, especially losing Josie Jewell and Alexander Johnson, Baron Browning and Jonas Griffith and Justin Strnad and Kenny Young, not as good in the box as those guys. So there's issues there coming down, getting off blockers, coming downhill, and making a play in the gap. Especially saw that in the games where with Jonas Griffith and Baron Browning specifically, and Justin Strnad. Oh my God, in the box, not very good. The other spot was the outside linebacker spot. Bradley Chubb, didn't see him very much this season, but I don't want to be too hard on this guy, but Malik Reed might be the worst run defense edge rusher in football as far as edge contain. Him against the Eagles, I just can't forget Lane Johnson.
I see looked like Malik Reed and raise you in Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, it means I don't know. Reed can get off the quarterback, but his ability to set the edge in the run game is bad. Like I just keep seeing it against Eagles and Lane Johnson. There was a play where he was kicked so hard inside and like elevated off the ground that it looked like Dirty Dancing. You know, the scene where they like
remember Jumpy Gathers. Any of your OGs remember Jumpy Gathers? He was an interior lineman, and he was strong for a football player. Strong, like, you know, when NFL linemen say that dude's strong, he had a move called the forklift. That's all he'd do. He'd lift up the guy in front of him and just drive him back. You know, 300 pounds. The forklift move. Get right underneath him, lift him up in the air, and drive him straight back. His nephew, I believe, was Clifton Gathers. Had a time had a little bit of time in the NFL. So yes, there's even amongst these guys, there's still another level.
Yeah. Nope. Absolutely right. Well, guys, as long as there's no other super chats coming in here, I'll let Scott do it. We need to get on out of here because we went an hour and 15. You can find Scott and myself on Twitter. We got Travis with the stars here. Share and like and throw the thumbs up on the way out. Make sure also you are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott's at Scout Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at Huddle Up Pod and at Mile High Huddle. If you like the gear here, rocking the hat, rocking the coffee mugs, go to huddleuppod.com. Check out all the Mile High Huddle merch. If you're on Facebook or the metaverse, whatever the heck they're going to call it these days, make sure you're joining our Facebook groups there, the community discussion there, a lot of mock drafts being posted, a lot of discussions about the head coaching search, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. If you are listening after the fact or you have an iTunes account in general listening podcasts, I'm a podcast fiend. I shared a podcast the other day on Twitter where everyone's like, Nick, are you a psychopath who listens to your podcast at 1.5 speed? No. I'm a psycho who listens to my podcast on 2 times speed because I need all the knowledge. But actually slowed it down for you guys. But leave your football priest a 5-star review and a chance to win some swag every single month. Finally, if you're on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing, liking, and sharing to Mile High Huddle and Scott's channel at youtube.com/C/Scott Kennedy, where you guys can go back actually to our show from yesterday from Scott, where we did a back and forth mock draft of the top 10. And I don't want to spoil it here, but the Broncos walked away with a very fun, intriguing edge rusher. So we both walked away with fun, intriguing edge rushers in that draft class. So.
Well, my draft, I was most excited about the Jets. I got both the Jets picked. That was where I was most excited, to be honest with you. So, and I'm gonna cut those up too and make it easy for everybody. So do individual draft picks as individual videos on my channel over the next couple of days.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate the heck out of you. Hello to Wyatt. I see Wyatt Horton's in the house too. We haven't said hi to him yet. Antonio Jones, great to see you as well. You guys are great contributors to our show. Colin Wood, hopefully the saltiness is wearing down. Colin, no, I appreciated the jab back.
He said he liked my salty takes.
Yes.
By God, like I've said, a Cleveland-born Atlanta sports fan. I come by my cynicism honestly, for sure. So the only way I was ever going to see a championship was when they played each other in 1995, and either the universe was going to blow up or somebody was actually going to win.
Yeah. Yep. Also, shout out Jeremy Sean, BX Bronco Jedi, Cleese in the house, Tommy Simmers in the house as well. You guys are great. Thank you for joining us today. Fallen Sloth still on the house as well. Shandy Bracy, you guys are amazing. We appreciate you so much. We'll be back again on Monday. Make sure you're tuning in tonight for the Huddle Up podcast show. It is Thursday, so we'll be there. Love you guys. Choose kindness, choose compassion. Go Broncos.